Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Great video. Thank you, Janelle. My name's Alex Gill, and for those of you I haven't met yet, I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario Environment Industry Association. And on behalf of ONIA, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. This is a huge turnout, so really good to see everybody. Normally, we'd be meeting, as you know, from past ONIA events, we'd be meeting in a hotel ballroom or some kind of event space where we could all greet each other, network afterwards. But of course, thanks to our friend COVID, we're now meeting in a virtual ballroom thanks to the Remo platform. So for those of you who haven't used Remo before, just a couple of quick observations. You can chat and send messages through the bar on the right. You can send messages to everyone, just your table, or to private people, so you can choose how you want to do that. And at the end of the session, we're going to be doing a question and answer with the audience. So if while people are talking in the next little while, you have a question, feel free to post it in the Q&A or the chat window, and we'll deal with those right toward the end. You can also make the speakers, when they're speaking, full screen by clicking on the arrows at the top right of their picture. ONIA has always been a place where people from a lot of different disciplines come together. And for the past several months, with the support of ONIA and with OSPI, QPs from a range of different backgrounds and companies have been meeting to discuss common issues. And in those discussions, which we're going to hear about in a minute, they identified a need for a space where QPs can come together on an ongoing basis to talk about issues of mutual concern. Now, that concept is still in development, and it's really good to see so many people showing up today, because before that conversation went further down the road, the group wanted to open up the conversation to a much wider audience of QPs. And this launch event is our first opportunity to kind of share those ideas beyond that first group with a broader group of people who are qualified persons. So with that in mind, I'm going to introduce Grant Walsom today from from XEG Consulting. Grant, for those of you who know him, is a QP with more than 25 years of experience in the sector. I'm going to turn the floor over to Grant, who can share a little more about the purpose and the proposed value of what they've been talking about and what's kind of become tentatively called the Qualified Persons Community of Ontario. It's a working group that for now is supported by ONIA and it's a mid back end. But where the community wants to go is up to the community, and Grant can explain more about that. So I'd like you to join me in welcoming Grant Walsom. And Grant, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Certainly appreciate the introduction. Welcome to everybody. Happy to see so many friendly faces. I know many of you through my years of experience and so forth. I had a look at the attendee list. Really happy to see people that I've met through different things over my 27 years, people that I've worked with in the past, and other people. So welcome to each of you. I'm going to go a little bit off script because I think I want to back up a little bit and talk about what we're doing here and why we're doing it. So I've known Adam Luce for, I think, probably 10 years. I tried to rack my brain of when I met him, but I think it was one of the early ONIA events at one of the roundtables. But we've discussed the issue of QPs a number of times and the need for a common place to gather, learn, discuss, improve, have dialogue with the ministry directly on things that we come up across, especially early on with records of site condition. But now with excess soil as well, there's quite a need for QPs and reliance on QPs themselves. There's been attempts, I think, in the past, early on by the Ministry of Environment to work towards finding that space and how to do that. Whether it's a resource constraint, roadblocks and hurdles, maybe from regulatory communities and the like, it really hasn't created any traction. I looked up the date because it will resonate with me for a long time. Is January 30th, 2020. It was at the Ministry of Environment's Resources Road. It was an excess soil presentation, and Adam and I, as we always do, I got together and chatted and how are things going and how's family and this and that. But it always comes back to the QP community, and we again brought that up. How do we get this moving? How do we make it better for the QPs? What role the ministry has in it and what will they play? And we came to the conclusion that, any type of community will need to come from within the constituents and be supported by the stakeholders, the MECP, OSPI, representing engineers, PGO, Um, but it also needs to probably rise up from an arm's length group who understands the views of each side and has strong reputation within the stakeholder groups. And being a longtime ONEA board member and participant on a number of committees, ONEA is the perfect fit, in my opinion, to help us get launched and be that mediary between geoscientists, engineers, MECP, etc. So Adam and I have we finally call ourselves co-champions. We talked briefly about being champions and having the championship belt and the Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior kind of guys, and being champions. And we commonly and fondly refer to each other that way. But so the two of us being champions and bringing ONEA in as that arm's length, we ventured out with a series of planning meetings. And I went through my calendar this morning and I counted 18 meetings that we've had in discussions at various levels, whether it just be myself with Janelle and Alex at ONEA, Adam and I, and then bringing in our initial stakeholder groups. And that was OSPI representing the engineers. We had a representative from PGO, and of course, Adam representing the MECP. And we've had a number of meetings, and the first 10 were in 2020 during the pandemic. And although we've been extremely busy, we've always, the group of us have always seen that this was something we wanted to continue to push forward and pushing that rock up the hill. And early on, after we'd come as a group of stakeholders, we decided that, I think we're in agreement. I think we all have respect for what we're trying to do here and so forth, but we really needed to congregate a group of QPs to test out these ideas and discuss what our thoughts are and what we need to be. So each of the stakeholder groups came up with 4 or 5 people we wanted to put forward as QPs with their equal representation of engineers, geoscientists, risk assessors. And so we brought together a group of 20, and we've had a number of discussions in that group. And the support that we got from that group of 20 has been overwhelming. And on days when I thought, boy, this is going to be a lot of work, and am I really what I'm doing? Is it really going to come to fruition? And the overwhelming support and positive attitudes from those people really kept us moving. Both Adam and I, invigorated us to continue and to move this file forward, continue to push the rock up the hill. And that really that group has confirmed what we thought, that this is a group that's likely needed and highly desired. So I will thank those people in a coming slide. So here we are today with you. This is a subset of the QP community, the full QP community in Ontario. And what I really wanted to identify today is that this is going to be starting small, and it's going to start as a directory and a forum for discussion. And we'll be looking to this community as we grow to identify what we want the QPCO to be and where we want it to go and how we're going to get there. So things that we're trying to accomplish really is create a spot where hopefully we get the majority of people who identify themselves as QPs listed on the directory. That's a searchable directory for potential clients, each other to find each other, because there's no singular list. Because we're coming from, in most cases, 3 different communities: engineers, geoscientists, and risk assessors who don't have a collective, quite frankly. So we'd like to bring everybody together in one area. The Ministry of Environment has that same issue, and as much as I like to be helpful, there's been a number of times where I've gotten contacted from my friends in different departments at the Ministry of Environment who said, hey, do you know where so-and-so is now? I think they changed jobs. I don't have their contact information. I need to speak to them about something, or I want to invite them to do something. And, we all change jobs. It's a very incestuous industry. And a lot of us have jumped around over a number of years. And the nice thing about having a directory is that, once a year you would go in and re-enter your information. So any information about you as a QP and how to contact you would be no more than 364 days old, which is great. So, if we want to push out information, the ministry's got some guidance. They want to discuss something, talk about new toxicology things with our risk assessors. There is a spot they can come to and start, and we can push information out to the QPs as a community as a whole, which is wonderful. We want to be able to come together. We want to learn from each other as well. We want to establish forums for discussion. Me as a QP, I have trouble with conceptual site models, and I would like to, find a way to get more information and training on that. I think that's probably where we, as that are filing records of site condition, fall down the most, is those conceptual site models upon our reviews. So things like that. We would like to maybe look at things like what training events would we develop? Who would be the provider? I think one of the first ones would be as an ethics refresher, to get everybody on reminded of that. The last time I did an ethics exam was 23 years ago, and I am an ethical person. I like to think I'm doing my business ethically, but I think it would benefit us all. And what that does too is it instills a lot of confidence in the QP community by the public, by each other, and by the ministry and other government bodies. And I think if we can do that, and so that's one of the things I think we would like to push forward as well. Just to be completely clear, a QP right now is defined by the qualifications in 15304, and I think that we are also looking at excess soil as well. Now there are other definitions of QPs. One is in the mining industry and so forth. As much as we would welcome them, our focus will not be in that area. So it's us that practice in brownfields industry for site assessment, site remediation, filing of records of site condition, and now with 40619, a strong reliance on QPs is now extended for excess soil management, even if you're not doing RSCs. So that's big as well. So the concept of improving QP submissions for records of site condition, having a central location for QPs to congregate, have a place where we can exchange ideas, information, update the community on changes through what's happening at the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, etc. So with the support of ONEA and OSPI, we've been discussing this concept, and I think we're very, very excited to be here today, to be promoting this with this group, and hopefully growing this initiative. So at this point, I think I'd like to hand the stage over to Adam, who's a very familiar name and face, especially to many of us QPs over the years that have done records of site condition, sat on committees, gone to events hosted by ONEA for brownfields, etc. Adam's the manager of brownfields and permits to take water division at the Ontario Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. He's my co-champion for QPCO and a huge part of the creation of this group. I'm proud to call Adam a friend and a colleague. I have a ton of respect for this man, and I'd like him to discuss the ministry's point of view on QPCO. Adam, take it away, bud.
Thank you, Grant. I'm really glad to be here today, and I appreciate the introduction. For those of you who I haven't met, in my hard to believe 17 years at the ministry, my name's Adam Luce. I'm currently the manager of the Brownfields Record of Site Condition Group, as well as the Permit to Take Water team and the permissions. So let me start by saying this kind of forum is probably overdue and something I am really keen to support. I think MECP has been thinking about how to drive efficiencies and reduce processing time for brownfield submissions. And, whenever you talk about that, improved communication, outreach, clarity of expectations always come up as fundamental to an efficient and effective process. So I have no doubt that this community will help to drive those outcomes. I think the forum essentially most fundamentally creates an opportunity to come together to evaluate process, tech issues, guidance needs, whatever it may be. So, where there's an opportunity to support you as a community of professionals in both brownfields and excess soil space, I think, it's something we're certainly keen on supporting. The creation of this group is really an opportunity to help industry create better communication, I think, between QPs and amongst yourselves, as well as, of course, with government. We certainly as a ministry, as a government, have a stake in making the regulatory environment more transparent to help you as QPs achieve. In brownfields, I always say it's a beautiful thing because we have the mutual objective of redeveloping these brownfield sites. We're really aiming at the same target, which is responsible, effective, efficient brownfield redevelopment and getting these old properties back into productive use. So when you have that mutual objective, it's an opportunity to collaborate well, which is great. And that's really what this is about. So there have been a lot of discussions, as Grant mentioned already, building up to now. And I really, really look forward to this evolving into something we can all appreciate. Thank you so much for being here today. This is really something that I've wanted to see happen for some time. So a huge thank you to Grant and Onia for all the work so far in putting this together. Grant has really been the big champ in doing this and done the heavy lifting. So Grant, thanks again for the opportunity. Thank you for doing this, and I'm looking forward to doing more. Cheers.
Thanks, Champ. I think we're hopefully laying the groundwork for everybody to see that there's a lot to gain for both the QP community and the ministry in creating this group, this directory, this forum for discussions. But I'd like to invite a few of the other people that I call the founders group, and that's the group of 20 that we used as the test subjects to discuss what we would like to do, the need for it, and so forth, and what those perspectives might be. First one is our liaison with OSPI. That's Dave Carnegie from Malroz, and he's been involved with us almost since day one. And Dave is very eloquent in how he speaks. He's very descriptive, but concise. And I really enjoy my discussions with Dave on how this is going to go and so forth. So, Dave, would you like to say a few words and hopefully of support?
Sure. Thanks, Grant. So happy to be here today and happy to see so many of you interested in helping to create this community. The part that really spoke to me was really the concept of having a community of practice where, we can scale up the types of discussions that we're all individually having, within our own firms or with our colleagues at other firms, usually in, small trusted groups of like, how are you interpreting this? Or what do you think about that? Or, what are you seeing in this area of the province in terms of background and how are you navigating that? So really I see this group as an opportunity to really amplify some of those discussions and ensure that we're sharing information like good scientists and good engineers to help us each be individually successful, but also to help represent our professions well. And I think, wearing my OSPI hat, that's something that, OSPI takes a great deal of pride in is that engineers are part of this QP community, both at the regulator and in private practice and sometimes on the client end. And, OSPI's view is we want engineers to continue to enjoy the privilege of being trusted professionals in this space, and we want them to be successful at it. And so this type of community creates an environment for, people like Grant, who've been at it for longer than I have, to participate and share their information, but also new graduates that are aspiring to be QPs and creates an environment for them to learn and be, really good QPs someday in the future. So with that, I think that's all I wanted to say. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak and looking forward to engaging with a lot of you going forward as this organization evolves.
Thanks, Dave. And as always, you presented the bigger picture really, really well, and your choice of words is always very, very good. Your vocabulary is much better than mine. But thank you for those words of support and in giving us your perspective on this. I'd like to call on somebody who's of the risk assessment community, and Teresa Phillips from Pynchon. I've known only for the last couple of years. I've known of her. I've seen her details on many reports and so forth. But I had the opportunity to meet her at one of Bruce Tunnicliffe's SMART events, and we sat at the same table. And it was a real pleasure to meet her and got to know her a little bit at that time. But since then, I've had the opportunity to meet her and get to know her a lot better, and certainly one of the well-respected people in our industry for sure. And Teresa, would you like to say a couple of words as well?
Sure. Thanks, Grant. Thank you for the compliment. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually really excited about this initiative, and I think it is long overdue. When I heard about this group, it was something I knew right away that I wanted or needed to be a part of. And I feel the industry's facing a lot of challenges right now. We've got new regulations and new guidance documents and emerging concerns such as PFAS. But I think this will provide a great forum for us to come together and bring forward issues as a community and drive forward some great solutions. And not to mention providing a means of communication to QPs for the ministry and promoting partnership with the ministry in addition to the possible future training opportunities that Grant mentioned and other initiatives that we've talked about. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we do down the road. I'm already listed on the directory at QPCO.ca. So if you haven't signed up already, it's fun. It's a great opportunity to be on a mailing list where people can find you, including the ministry. I think the fee is reasonable and worthwhile. And what more can I say? Feel free to contact me during the networking part of the event coming up to talk more if you have any questions. Back to you, Grant.
Thanks, Teresa. I really appreciate your words of support and being one of the early adopters and getting on the QPCO directory. As Teresa pointed out, we do have a website already, and that's how the directory will work. And it's set up and operating. Janelle Yaniszewski, our office manager, or operations manager, excuse me, at ONIA, has worked hard in bringing that together. And I really like the branding that we've got around that. So it's up and operating at www.qpco.ca, and hopefully that's nice and easy for everybody, simple to remember and so forth. But the website is very easy to operate and get in there and do those things. So really, this is where we're going to start, is with the directory. And as I said, on some of the marketing you may have seen on LinkedIn about today, is that be there or be square. And this is how we're going to make this thing work, is getting people involved. Yes, there will be a cost to participate, and it's like anything. If it's free, you go in, you sign up, and you never do anything with it. So it does legitimize things, put in the cost in there, but it's also going to allow us to expand this group, develop some course content and so forth, those things. Where, depending on the course, if you're already a member, you may get into certain training aspects or workshops and those types of things based on your paid up membership. So we're going to look at those things, and those will certainly be open for discussion. We're offering right now, Janelle, if you want to bring up that slide, a discounted rate up to July 1st as we launch this group and try to get people involved. And I'm sorry if that sounds like a sales pitch, but we're looking to get this group up and running as fast as we can. So please, when you look at it, if you want to discuss those things, I'm certainly welcome to discuss them. There will be a time to discuss some of that in the Q&A portion of this presentation, or if you want to speak to Janelle or myself after today about those types of things, I'm certainly welcome to do that. I want to get one more person involved, and this person I've known for a number of years. I think we kind of got to know each other at the ONIA curling events, and it's blossomed from there. friendship and our mutual professional relationship through CBN as well. Krista Barfoot is a risk assessor from Stantec, and very well spoken as well, like the other guests. But Krista, you're heavily involved as well at ONIA, and I'd like to bring you up on stage to say a couple of words about what your thoughts on QPCO.
And I'm largely echoing, I think, what others have said before, but I am very pleased to finally see this coming to fruition after so much months of conversation and all the behind scenes work that's happened. And kudos and thanks to you, Grant, for leading the charge on this. And I do also want to thank Adam for participating on behalf of the ministry and helping us really make sure we're setting this up in a way that makes sense and is going to meet the needs of the industry. I think as QPs, it's important that we maintain integrity and public chronically working towards improving the quality of our practice. And I see a lot of value in being able to participate in a forum where we can exchange ideas and access information that helps us to all stay current with regulation and with best practices, and ultimately allows us to provide confidence, not just to our clients, but to the Ontario citizens, that the work that is being done in this contaminated site space is being done in a way that is protective of both humans and the environment. So I see this community is ultimately really going to help us as individuals increase our effectiveness in our practice, but also the effectiveness of the whole industry. And I am really looking forward to seeing how this continues to evolve and develop. And that's it for me. Back to you, Grant.
Thanks, Krista. Appreciate your support as well. And as you see, this is just the start of our conversation. We need the people of this community, the engineers, the geoscientists, the risk assessors, to come together and be part of an ongoing conversation of how we can build this group in a way that is the most impact on improving QP's business and environmental outcomes. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here today and listen to us, a few of us espouse about what we think and what we're trying to accomplish here. But I think right now we'd like to open up the floor because, you know, there's a lot of information very quickly, and we would like to allow you an opportunity to ask about, you know, what you've heard and maybe some of the things that you would like to hear about as well. And I'm going to ask Adam to join us as well. And Alex, if you don't mind helping us navigate through questions in the chat window, etc., that would be great. So we'll give a couple minutes for people to possibly type a question or two in there. I'm not sure about this platform, whether we can invite people to speak themselves. I apologize. I should have asked that question before, but questions into the chat window, the Q&A window, Alex will help us navigate through that. And Adam and I will certainly do our best to answer your questions to your satisfaction.
Sure. And happy to take questions in the chat window, as we've got one digital hand up. And so let's try, Grant, the unmuting and asking people to
awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you.
Try that. All of a sudden the hand is down. Oh, so somebody got shy right away. Oh, there we go. Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, everybody, and good afternoon. I'm the CEO of the PGO, Professional Geoscientists Ontario, and I just wanted to say that I'm really happy this organization has come together. It looks like it's going to be really, really useful. From a number of perspectives, from our point of view, we find that there's a lot of confusion about QPs, especially with the public. And when you throw 43-101 on the mining industry there, it becomes a little bit more confusing as well from our perspective. But we also, this is very timely because I've been with about, but it became evident early on that there are some issues with respect to the non-use of QPs, shall I put it that way, or and in certain cases, it's with municipalities. In other cases, it's with CAs. and other organizations. And we've been scratching our heads trying to figure out, okay, so what is the most effective thing we can do about this? And we've been having some interactions with particular ministries, of course, MECP, MNRF, during the changes to the Aggregate Resources Act. I think we managed successfully to get QPs introduced into the regs there. And MECP at the MO level has been very interested in QPs and how they're used and so on. So we've been talking to them as well. And so we're very interested in coordinating our efforts with respect to communicating with government, with you guys. And in terms of the directory, that's a fantastic initiative. We're about to develop a directory of our own of professional geoscientists as a whole, but maybe the QP directory could be a subdirectory of that, or this could be some sort of collaboration in that effort going forward. So thank you very much.
Thanks for speaking up, Tony, and appreciate you attending today and the words of support. It was greatly appreciated.
You bet.
Does Sandro from OSPI want to jump in at all? I don't know if he's still with us, but I know he was at the beginning. But and maybe in lieu of waiting for a question or two, does Sandro want to make himself available?
I think he might be on another floor. I'm looking for him in the audience here, Grant. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, it took me a second to turn my camera on. So,
Hey, Sandro.
So I think this is a great initiative as well. So when Grant reached out and Alex reached out to OSPI and said, would you guys be interested? This was a no-brainer. It was really intuitive to set something up like this. I was involved in something informally around this in my previous career in the occupational health and safety world, where a number of ministry labor inspectors reached out to me, those that knew me, and said, listen, we're looking for, we have, clients, or we have workplaces we go into and they really need help, and they're asking us who would be good to do this sort of work. And we're very hesitant to refer, one consulting firm over another. So can we refer them to you, and then you kind of do that work for us and send them in the right direction? And then even at OSPI, I've had ministry inspectors with other ministries approach me personally and say, we've seen some, not every engineer is created equal. There are some engineers who are more qualified than others. So can you direct some of the workplaces that we visit to find the right engineer to help them out? So this has happened informally for 2 decades from my understanding. So to set something up formally like this, I think is fantastic and past due its time. I think it's going to help not only the ministry, but help workplaces and help sites and help employers who need to find the right resource quickly and safely and with a level of confidence. And so I congratulate Grant and Alex for coming, and Adam for coming up with the idea, reaching out to OSPI for help. And it's something that we fully endorse. So I'm really looking forward to growing this community.
Awesome. Thanks, Sandro. Appreciate the kind words.
Great. And so, Grant, we have a question from Simon in the chat window talking about confirming that the focus of the group are QPs for brownfields and excess soil-related work. Did you consider a different name that might reflect this focus to reduce confusion with other types of QPs?
We talked about that a little bit. I think really, I think people that know what QPs are will know that this is probably more geared towards the 153 definition. We try to be very clear on our website about who those QPs are. If it's found that the other types of QPs, like Tony identified in the mining sector and so forth, they need a collective, we could certainly discuss with them coming over and having their own definition and possibly a designation or something that would assist to help them be recognized as QPs, but maybe separate. So really, I think that what we are trying to do is very succinctly and so forth, recognize ourselves as a QP community in Ontario, and that's really what the name is derived from. But I do believe, Simon, that you raise a good question. And there's always going to be, when you've got two people calling themselves kind of the same thing, or two groups, there could be a little bit of confusion. But I think really it's for this people in this group to come together, and that's really the people that need to know what that definition is. I hope that answers your question, Simon. But thank you.
Great. And Grant and Adam, Teresa's pointing out in the chat window that in the Q&A section, wondering if you can touch on the terms of reference about how the organization, or how the initiative, it's not a formal organization yet, how it's going to be organized and kind of chaired moving forward, and at what point it might make a decision about what it will look like in the future. I wonder if you want to touch on that.
Sure. In order to get this group up and running and off the ground, with the ONEA support, this right now is going to be administered as a working group of ONEA. Now, if you're not an ONEA member, first of all, shame on you. But if you're not, that doesn't preclude you from being a participant at QPCO. So it's not necessarily an ONEA thing. It's a working group right now out of ONEA, and ONEA is helping us administer this. Having said that, in the next number of months, we are going to be hopefully bringing each and every one of you, and probably hopefully more people who identify as QPs in the province, and decide, what do we want to be? Do we want to be a working group? Do we want to keep it sweet and simple and operate as an extension of the directory? Or do we want to become a group of our own that will have to have a board of directors and bylaws and those types of things? So it's going to be interesting to see what this community wants it to be. We can be whatever we want to be, and it has to come from within. I'd like to think of myself as Adam and I as the farmers who plant the seed, and the community itself is going to be blossom and become what it wants to be. So that's how it's administered right now. In the next month or two, we'll start gathering some thoughts on how do we want to come together. Do we want to have a forum? Do we want to have a really good discussion with the Ministry of Environment on, what are the things that, they're continuing to see as issues when filing records of site condition? Do we want to have workshops on what the QP's role is in excess soil management? Those types of things. So that's where we're starting. We're starting with the directory, but as we move forward, we want to expand it to be what this community wants it to be.
Yeah, and just to add to that point, Grant, when Grant brought this to the ONEA board and said, we need to start a conversation among QPs, they got it right away, because it's an extension of many of the ONEA member companies are in brownfields and soil and remediation and that kind of space. So they said, it'll help the people doing the work get together and talk about their issues. Great. You want us to provide some kind of admin back end for it? Great, we're happy to do that. But have a conversation, and when you figure out where you want to go, at some point, the group gets to determine where it wants to go and what it wants to do. So I really like the way the Grant and Adam and the others around it structured it, because it's not directive from the start. It's let's get people together in one place, start a conversation, and see what we want to have happen. So it's ONEA is happy to provide the admin back end up to a point, and then when the group decides where it wants to go, happy to be part of that conversation or not. So it's totally up to the community.
Great.
And so we have a question from Catherine in the chat window. With a community this large, do you foresee having working subgroups in addition to the group as a whole, like a subgroup for risk assessors or excess soil? And good question, Catherine, what do you think?
Yeah, Catherine, that's a great question. And I see all of those things. And Grant Walsham can't make those things happen on his own. Adam Luce can't make those things happen on his own. But with participation and people coming with ideas to this group, and then willing to participate and lead those charges, I see all of those things happening, and I welcome that. Because the excess soil and the risk assessment, yeah, it does overlap, but if you're focusing, some of the things that you'll be doing are different, and maybe there are subcommittees that need to discuss, and how do we improve that, and what kind of opportunities do we need for workshops and educational events and so forth. So again, this can be whatever this community wants it to be. I welcome all of those ideas and bringing them forward. And yes, Catherine, I do see it to be something along those lines. Adam, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, thanks, Grant. I think, you said it well. I don't think we've predetermined any specific format. I do think it's intuitive that, even within QPs in the brownfields or excess soil space, there are different things that people do. And, risk assessment is a great example of there's some unique challenges or issues that would want to be discussed amongst probably a smaller group. So a forum to do that, probably then, particular individuals at the ministry to support that kind of thing will be different. So, one of the things that, that we've identified internally, as you sort of heard me say in the opening remarks, is, greater outreach, greater communication, greater transparency of our expectations, and greater access to each other. I think that's what we're after in terms of outcomes. And however this group thinks that that's best done, great. And what I'll do is work on my end, try to ensure we're at the table and contributing to that effort. Again, I think there's big payback there for us. So it's an easy sell, and something that, I hope we can pour a lot into and we'll get a lot of return. Again, the mutual objective of these things moving faster, and people getting it right the first time. As we all want that. So yeah,
Great. And a couple of questions actually, Adam, in the chat window that are specific to the ministry. Ryan says, how does MECP foresee making use of the forum or the directory? Is it intended to become a primary or only means of delivering information to QPs? Because if so, does that create an unfair advantage for the QPs who choose to be listed versus the QPs who don't? So
sure.
any thought on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and one that we've discussed as well. And the short answer is no. This is not going to be the only forum for which we communicate. We have our traditional communication vehicles, and we need to be conscious that if folks who are practicing in this space decide not to be part of this community, that they still have access to information. And maybe an example, if another community were to come forward and organize themselves like has been done here, then I think the ministry would see equal value in participating in that. And so we want to make sure that whoever wants to talk to us has an opportunity. I think what this does is it just creates a forum. One of the challenges we have as a ministry in terms of education outreach isn't that we don't want to or don't see value in engaging the community. There's a lot of time, energy, effort organizing and facilitating these kinds of things, and that becomes a barrier. And so, I think that's one of the barriers being knocked down here. So, wherever that opportunity exists through speaking events or conferences or these kinds of things where you typically might see someone talking on a panel, that's still definitely on deck.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Rakesh has a question too. Window. Will there be a discussion forum or some kind of way for QPs to ask questions and get opinions or supports for RCs, risk assessments, excess soil? Is it intended that this could become a two-way medium of communication? Grant, do you want to handle that?
Yeah, that's one thing that Adam and I agreed upon very, very early, and it's part of the understanding that we have together is that we need to engage and have forums where common questions and concerns can be discussed with the ministry. It's going to be a two-way street. The ministry is also going to have the opportunity to say, look, this is what we're seeing, and we need to find a way to get this improved because it will help on their response times. So that was always going to be part of the understanding that Adam and I, when we came together to discuss this, was, we need to have opportunities where it would be a forum where we have participation from anybody in the community with the staff from the ministry. We would obviously pick a topic because Adam would need to find those resources and get commitments from that staff to be there. But it wouldn't be a lack of a better term, a bitch session, or gripes or complaints, or, hey, where's my RSC? I filed it 5 weeks ago. It's going to be a productive two-way conversation about, hey, this is what we're seeing, guys in the QP community. How do we get a better traction on this? How do we improve the services from both ends? And yes, that will be one of the main drivers continuing, because as we grow and as we go further in time, we have new QPs coming online, and some of the same common things that I heard 5 years ago, the new QPs that are coming in now will not have heard yet. So it will have to be a continual dialogue. Adam?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. An example, like we've got our record of site condition guidance that was just out on the environmental registry recently. And, we have as everybody right now, we're trying to do more with less, and we've got record volume of RSE submissions. And so we're sort of triaging in terms of what's next. And we certainly hear via EBR, here's what we need in terms of a community. But, we don't then get to go back and engage in that kind of conversation as well as we'd like to. And Grant, I think you brought up an example earlier around conceptual site model or CSM guidance. Is that what this community would prioritize in terms of working on next? And, where there is a need, Grant, you hit on something there that's, it's not necessarily this isn't necessarily just a dialogue between government and the QPs. I think this is a dialogue amongst QPs, and I really want to drive that home because I think a lot of answers that can be put forward, not just questions, but answers can be put forward by a community to say, here's what we think this should look like, and drive that kind of solutioning where the ministry can then look at that and go, or participate in that and sort of come to that conclusion together, as opposed to, hey, here's what we think the answer is. Over to you on EBR. You tell us. It's a collaborative thing versus a back and forth. And again, to the extent that can be generated from within the community, I think there's real value in that.
Yeah, Alex, I want to point out to our participants. I see the numbers are dropping off a little bit because I think the lunch hour is ending. We are here till 1:30. But I do understand time is very precious for all of us business activity. There's a few people I want to thank just as we're getting people dropping off, because I think it's very important, but we will continue till 1:30 with questions. Our founders group was formed with Krista Barfoot, Denise Lakeen, Kareem Hosni, Jeff Muir, Glenn Reynolds, Brent Laguille, Jerry Parrott, Dave Carnegie, Tom Goff, Jim Walls, David Wong, Glenn Ferguson, Paula Hutchison, David Isherwood, David McClelland, Rob Helix, Teresa Phillips, and the people from our steering committees was extremely helpful in getting us here. And that's Lee Weisling and Sandro Peruza from OSPI. Zen Kaisers, who graciously gave up his time early on in the discussions and giving us perspective from as a professional geoscientist. He's with Terrapex Environmental now. He was very, very key in helping us early on. Adam, my co-chair, you're a co-champ, and I really appreciate everything you've done. And Alex and Janelle from ONIA have been extremely instrumental in helping us get here, especially during very busy times. So I just wanted to get that out there, Alex, before too many people drop off.
Sure. And thank you, Grant. And we've got a couple more questions. I am conscious that we did tell people we would be here till 1:30 with questions and some networking, but I want to make sure we do give people some time for networking. We've got a great group of people here.
Yeah.
So just a couple more questions from the chat window. Kurt's posing the question that, do we have a schedule yet of QPCO group meetings or events, or is this still being worked out? I think it's still being worked out, Grant, but you guys have some ideas about what those events might look like, discussion sessions with the ministry, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, we don't have a committee or a schedule as of yet. We're going to move something very quickly, but here's the thing: we need people to sign up, and we need to be able to communicate some of that out. So, you know, I think what was really important for today was to launch the group, get people aware of it, and hopefully get people registered on the directory, and then look at, you know, what is maybe the one top 2 or 3 things that we would like to do. I haven't spoken with Adam yet about getting something scheduled in terms of an open forum and maybe devising the top 5 things that we want to accomplish in the first year as a group and moving things forward. So there isn't a schedule yet, Kurt. It's a great question. I wanted to maybe have that ready for today, but unfortunately my paying job has been quite busy and haven't had those opportunities, but it will be in the works, and it will be based on input from people in this group.
Okay, great. And there was a question in there. You mentioned Zen and the thank yous. Zen had a question around how or what kind of role does this directory or group play in talking about the quality of work that's done by people? Because I know that was a very deep discussion at several meetings.
Yeah, and that's at the slippery slope. And the one thing that we can't do is guarantee the quality of anybody who's listed on the directory. That would take a whole nother layer of association that we're not prepared to do. There's a number of liabilities around that. But having said that, what we would like this directory to do is be able to checkbox certain things that we would have offered. So I'm thinking the first one is an ethics refresher that, you know, would be invited for everybody. I'm hoping we can find a way to do that with no cost within this group, but get an ethics refresher and have that be able to check that box in your listing of the directory. We're hoping that being included in the community and participating in various aspects will, by osmosis, our community will become better, and we will promote those things, and we will say, look, 95% of our people have taken these courses or these workshops as we've moved forward. And so, Zen, I think that's still a big goal of ours. However, we cannot mandate that. We cannot force that. We can invite people. We can promote it. We can suggest. But this community is only as good as the participants in it. And if people decide they don't want to do that and choose not to do that, we certainly can't force that. But it will be the goal to try to raise the bar of the QPs in Ontario by offering those types of opportunities.
And I'll deal with Kim's question as a final question. It kind of points to where we go from here. But just a quick question from David around, is there a potential way to use QPCO as a way to do peer reviews of RSCs to help alleviate the backlog at MECP? I think the broader question is, getting people together like this, shouldn't there be a way or ways in which this can help with the backlog at MECP that's also affecting everybody?
Mm-hmm. That could be way down the road, and that would take a lot of more agreements with people and so forth, and contracts and those types of things. But Adam, is that something that is down the list on your goals of to-dos?
Yeah, I think, I mean, maybe I'll start by answering this by we are very busy. We had a banner year in terms of submission volume last year, record breaking. I think we, looked at, upwards of 1,200. We did upwards of 1,200 reviews in the year. But, it's probably excuse me, it's probably also worth noting that, there's not really a backlog. I'm pretty proud of the team because, they generally turn around these reviews in 30 days, give or take. You know, and if you look at environmental compliance approvals, ECAs, they have a 1-year service standard to complete reviews. You know, it's just important for everyone to remember in brownfields, we do these in 30 days. The challenge is it takes more than once to get it through the system. And, you know, when you unpack that issue, a lot of it is about, you know, trying to, there's a number of factors, but if we can get, you know, higher quality submissions, if we can do that, and we've got some responsibility to help with that, and I think that's what this is about. If we could, you know, it's a pretty complex regulation. You know, Reg 153, for anyone who has read through that, it's a doozy. And we're dealing with subsurface, you know, freight and transport. So this is complex work you guys are doing. So, you know, it's not just about quality of submission. It's about things like the folks on my team having time to be able to reach out when they issue a letter of deficiencies or not in accordance letter, and have a conversation, help QPs and owners get through the next time and understand what the expectations are. In terms of the more direct question about peer review RSCs, you know, I think there's a concept or a notion within the organization for heavier reliance on QPs. And we see that through EASERS, or the Environmental Activity Sector Registry. And so I think we are looking at ways of a greater reliance on QPs to reduce volume of submissions. And that's certainly a risk-based you know, approach. So whether or not we actually go with a peer review approach, which for those of us who have been around for a while was actually how it worked pre-96 and pre-regulation 2000, or as part of the 96 guidelines, excuse me, pre-2004. That's how it worked. But you know, I'm not sure if we'll go there or not, but you know, we'll see where this evolves. And I think a community like this that we can point to, you know, and it evolves into something more, you know, maybe, you know, I wouldn't rule it out.
Okay.
But I think for now, let's start here.
Yeah. Okay. And that's a nice segue to the final question from Kim, which is, how do you suggest people get involved? And I mean, one thing we've seen, Janelle's just sent me a quick message. 5 people have signed up during the course of this meeting to be on the directory. So congratulations, that's great. So helping the community that's coming together have a conversation with you, I think, is one big way. Grant, other things you'd suggest?
Once we come up with a couple of dates that we would like to open up some conversations, we will send a messaging out through the directory to say, hey, let's do this, and let's have a forum, and let's have a discussion. And maybe that one is first off is Adam will be there, but maybe not with the ministry's kind of hat on, but more as, hey, here's QPCO. Let's talk about, you know, what do we want to do, and how do we get involved, and do we want to form a couple of working groups that maybe we'll report back to everybody else, which I think is awesome. And your enthusiasm, Kim, and hopefully your participation in stepping up in the next month or two while we get this thing moving will be certainly welcomed.
Okay, great. So I want to thank everybody for coming today, and a reminder that we do have networking that's available, and this session's being recorded, so the recording will be available to people afterwards if you want to reference it. But if you'll notice over on the left margin of the main room, it says different floors, because we had so many people register. People are across 2 different floors. So feel free to look at people who are at the other table, double click on a seat on the other table, just want to drop in and say hi. The forum's going to be open for Q&As and for individual networking and individual discussions for the next little while. And if you have any technical issues around the chat or whatever, feel free to just message Janelle directly for support. So Grant, some final words maybe to you and Adam, and then we can let people get on with the networking.
As I think I alluded to earlier, Adam and I see ourselves as the farmers planting the seed. And we see big things for this. The overall enthusiasm that we've received in support up to today has been amazing. And I kind of think it's going to continue. So thank you for your interest today. and hopefully we'll be able to move this thing forward, push that rock up the hill. I think this is further than anybody has tried to get this in the past. Adam, you could speak to that, but just getting to today, I think is an amazing feat. Now let's get the directory, filled out and start moving together as a community on raising the bar. Adam?
Yeah, well said, Grant. I mean, go sign up. If there's uptake on this and there's interest in this, which I really, of course, hope there is, we'll start talking about how to develop an agenda and bring that forward and chew on some issues. So I'm looking forward to it. So thanks, Grant and Alex and Janelle very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great job, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks to everybody for joining, and good luck with the networking. Looking forward to seeing you guys at a future event, and thanks to everybody who signed up. Well, thanks and have a good rest of the day, and please enjoy the digital networking while it's here.